Moving right along. So I've been meaning to increase the boat's tankage or water carrying capacity. And when I rebuilt the galley, I did install 10-gallon water tanks, one under each quarter berth. So the port side one, I built this shelf, which is elongated because I have my battery bank sitting on it. This water tank is actually vented through there and up through the closet. This water tank on the starboard side is vented with this little vent with a float in it. And this particular shelf that I built to put it on is actually closed off because I have my sensor, my depth sensor under there that goes through the hull. And if that ever leaked, having that closed off would be helpful to address that. I actually did install a deck plate on top of the shelf to be able to access the depth sensor. So these two tanks are connected via this hose, which has a valve in the middle of it that I can open to dump both of the tanks. The starboard side also has a valve in it, so I can isolate it from the other one in order to keep from cross-contaminating both tanks. So the plan here is to put in another tank here. And based on my measurements, this 7-gallon tank should fit right in there. And as you might notice, I've installed these deck plates on top of both tanks here, which is exactly what I'm going to do with this one. That makes cleaning them out much easier. And now I've slid that tank right in there, and my measurements were accurate because it fits in there perfectly. This was the best tank I could find within this size range, so I think this should work. I've cut the hole in the top of the tank with a hole saw, and before I screw this down into these holes I marked, I'm going to bed it with a little bit of caulk. This is 100% silicone, which should be okay for potable water. And with that out of the way, I can turn my attention to installation. So the original intention was to tap into the line that comes out of this tank. So at the bottom of this tank, there's a hose that runs out, goes through a filter, and then up to the hand pump. And I was planning to put in a T here or a Y, and then run a hose, this hose, through here and then under the sole to this tank. And also put in a valve in each, before each tank to isolate them. But I think a better idea is actually to just do a standalone tank. And what I mean by that is just put a valve in it, and then when I need the water, pull this out and then fill this manually, either by pouring it or pumping it. That saves me a few things here. So of course the complexity and expense of running a hose. Then there's the question of whether it'll work at all, because this is a manual hose, but even an electric hose, this is a pretty long run, and it's much lower than the two saddle tanks here. So I'm wondering how well that would even work. And then having it stand alone, there would be absolutely no chance of cross-contaminating. So I think that's probably the best way to go. Okay, so for the side of the tank with all of the openings, this is meant for a deck fill. You just have to cut it open. I don't need that. This was threaded 1/2 inch. It was already open, so I capped it. Same here, threaded 1/2 inch, and this was also a threaded 1/2 inch. So I just found this little brass valve that I can use to dump the tank when I need to. And now that's installed. So moving ahead, those are my hard tanks. Now I'm going to some bladders. So I bought a couple of these from smartbottleinc.com, and 5.3 gallon bladder. Have not tested these yet, so I do not know how long they will last. They seem to be much more flexible than those old red Reliance water carriers that seem to leak every time you fold them. And those slide right into the bilge. So 5.3 gallons each. I did take a little bit out of that one to get it to fit in there, but figure about 5 gallons each. I probably will make some sort of nylon cover, or at least line the bilge. I mean, this area over here, especially where the nuts and bolts for the lightning protection system are sticking out, that would be a problem. So I'll have to do something about that. And I have another water bladder here, a sun shower that you heat up in the sun for taking showers. It does say 5 gallons, but I think this is probably more like 3. And this isn't necessarily just for showering. It could be just for storing extra water. And that fits perfectly right into the bilge also. So the last part for now, anyway, for water storage is the standard Scepter 5-gallon jerry cans. I have 2 of those for a total of 10 gallons. They don't necessarily need to be stored inside the cabin. They can be tied up in the cockpit, or more likely between the shrouds on the side deck, and I certainly have room for more, although I probably have a couple of jerry cans with diesel on this side. So that's it for water storage for now. That's 10 gallons, 10 gallons, 7 gallons, 3 gallons, 5 gallons, 5 gallons, 5 gallons, 5 gallons. That's exactly 50 gallons, which I think is pretty good, at least for one person. Next, I've been meaning to address something that's been irritating me for a while, and that is these seals that I have in the lids for the Lazarettes. It's really just some narrow weather stripping, somewhat soft. However, notice, I don't know if it shows up on video, but it actually raises up the lid. And also I was not able to get it on this part where it meets here because of clearance. And really the reason for those is not for, let's say, when it rains, because this is raised up and the rain just falls down. It's really more when the boat is kind of heeled and water collects in that area. It will get into the bilge and engine room. So I did get this off of Amazon actually, and it was advertised as being neoprene, but it's actually looks more like a hard rubber. But I'm going to try it out. It's pretty thin, but it's nice and wide, so it might work. I'm going to check that out. I was also going to redo the seal under the cockpit sole here, the removable sole, but that's probably something for another time, because I'm still working out the best way of attaching this. These are the Zeus fasteners, but I have some other options, so that's something for another time. Removed that old seal, and boy, that did not want to come off. It was actually self-adhesive, had a self-adhesive strip that had a scrape. And now I've cut all the pieces to size, and notice how I'm butting up the part that goes along here against the sides, and then the part that goes along here butting the sides up against that. So it's kind of a change in orientation. And because this is not self-adhesive, I'm using contact cement. I've been using this particular brand for a number of years with a lot of success. Okay, got that installed. So I put the contact cement on the surface and the rubber itself, and I had to actually let them dry before I put them together for a more permanent bond. And I don't know if it shows here, but there are 2 protruding screws with nuts on them that were preventing this from making contact. So I just drilled a rubber. Always something to make it more complicated. So real world usage seems to be a bit more tight. However, this thing still goes up. So I'm guessing that's probably a function of where the hinge has been mounted rather than the seal pushing it up. But still better than it was. All three Lazarettes complete.